one of the very earliest people that my father admired was a man named Yellow-Kid-Weil. Did you ever hear of Yellow-Kid-Weil? Some people pronounce it Wheel. Yellow-Kid-Weil. Never heard of him, did you? That's because you lived in a respectable house. I'm sure you did. Your father probably admired some guy who started Liberty Mutual. You know, some great man like that. Or some guy that ran the local Chevy agency that really made it, you know. Well, my old man dug Yellow-Kid-Weil. And I never thought anything about that. I thought everybody had a father who dug Yellow-Kid-Weil. So I just went around. And one day, wasn't until I was in school, I was about in 5th grade, when we had to write an essay. This is how this came about. I wonder how many people's private life has suddenly been ripped asunder by an essay that the kid writes in school. Well, I'm sitting down there, and Miss Robinette, who was in 4th grade, she says, today we want you to write you remember when they used to have a thing you had to write in school called an essay, or a paper, a theme, they really called it. Write a theme. I wonder if Norman Mailer's writing themes when he writes his books. But nevertheless, we had to write a theme. And the theme was a great man that you have heard about. So I figured, okay. So I go home and I said to my father, I'm going to write about a great man. And he says, yep, okay. A very, very great man. I said, well, who was a great man? He says, well, Lincoln, great man. That's an official great man, remember. That isn't the great man that people really secretly dig. That's an official great man. And every kid's going to write about Lincoln. So I didn't do anything about it, except that I went into my room and I wrote a theme. And the theme, roughly stated, says, my father has a very great man that he reads about all the time in the newspaper. Because I remember reading about it in the paper, see. His name is Yellow-Kid-Weil. And my father thinks he is a very great man. End of theme. That's the way you expand a theme when you're in 4th grade, see. Well, I handed this theme in. Now, this is an absolutely true story. And by the way, it became later a curious family legend because of what happened as a result of it. I handed the theme in, and about 2 days later, back they came. And on my theme was written in red. You remember the red stuff the teachers would write on it, like B+ or C- or what the hell is this, that kind of stuff. Or usually poor punctuation. The teachers have a real thing about punctuation. I imagine this is why James Joyce wrote the way he did. He never punctuated anything. Can you imagine E.E. Cummings handing in a great poem to Miss Robinette, and everything is in small case? She said, what the hell is it in small case? Well, they never really seem to worry about the what's in the guts of what you write. It's the framework, see, whether or not it's punctuated right or whether you made thumbprints on a paper. That's important. So, nevertheless, it came back and it said, see me. See me. That is a summons, See me. Says Miss Robinette. So I get the thing, I'm sitting in class. So after, the bell rings, after class, I go up to the front there, and there was always about 3 or 4 other guys who were getting hell, usually after the class, see. So I walk up to the front, and Miss Robinette, we're all in the class all by ourselves now, just me and Miss Robinette, who, by the way, always looked like she had a black football helmet on. She wore her hair like that, kind of funny-looking hair. It looked like it had some kind of shellac or something on it, see. And she had blue-rimmed glasses, the kind with the Harlequin-type glasses, blue-rimmed glasses. That's Miss Robinette, okay? So she says, were you serious in your theme you wrote? And I said, yes, I began to have a little fear, like I've really done something bad, see. And I said, why? She said, did your father say that Yellow-Kid-Weil is a great man? Little fear. We all know there's an instinct. People have an instinct when they know that they have really done it. Now, I don't know where this instinct comes from. It must come from the time when they were living in caves, It has to go back even probably when we were amphibians or something, when you knew. Let's face it, we come from fish, You know that, don't you? You know that? I hate to say this to you, Bob, but we're related to fish, ultimately. Well, can you imagine how terrible one of your very earliest ancestors must have been when he made a sudden rush for what he thought was a frog, and he got hooked on a basserino? Well, so I knew something was wrong. And I said, what? Well, I said, I don't know. I don't think I spelled it right. She says, well, would you please take this note home and don't open it? I want you to take this note home to your mother and father. Well, have you ever taken a note home from a teacher? Man. I mean, and there it was. It was in an envelope and sealed. And it said on the outside, Mrs. Shepard. Underneath it, it said, from Miss Robinette. I was scared out of my skull. And at first I thought, well, I'm going to stick it down a sewer on the way home. But then I knew that was no good, because what Miss Robinette always did was call up to find out whether the note got home. So, well, it's too late now. I guess this is the way guys must feel when their head is on the guillotine. When they see the brother, well, it's too late now, what the hell? It's all over. So I take the thing home and I just give it to my mother. Here. She says, what's this? I said, Miss Robinette sent it home. She opens up the note. She's got this funny look on her face. And the old man was in the living room squatting down there reading the paper, and she says, now look what you've done. He says, what do you mean? She says, Jeannie... She says, you're going to have to go to PTA next time. I don't care whether you like PTA or not, you're going to have to go to PTA. You're going to have to talk to his teacher and explain it to him. And it started a whole thing rolling. Do you know who Yellow-Kid-Weil was? All right. Anybody who knows is out there probably flipping. Those of you who don't know, I'll ask Mac. Mac, tell those guys, Mac just came in, tell those two guys in there who Yellow-Kid-Weil was. And I just want to tell you, friends, I think you can tell more about a family by the people they admire than by almost anything else. And I'm talking about who they admire when they're sitting around the dinner table or squatting around drinking beer. I'm not talking about the people they admire when the pollster comes up and says, like they always have these pollsters, who do you think was the greatest man in the history of the United States? Well, George Washington. Well, do you really believe that? Do you really? But this is the official answer. Well, what I had done one of the worst things you can do. I had betrayed a family secret. I had laid out the secret of my old man for everybody to see. Yellow-Kid-Weil, friends, and I will tell you, I'm not going to leave you hanging, was America's greatest confidence man. And you know why he was called Yellow Kid? Because he was famous for one thing. Yellow Kid was the greatest con man who ever lived. Yellow-Kid-Weil, well, even to this day, they don't know how many flim-flams Yellow-Kid-Weil pulled. I mean, he was legendary. He was the Mickey Mantle, the Joe DiMaggio of con men. He had a tongue, friends, if you heard of the silver tongue, this guy had a tongue of pure radium, platinum, magnificent. Oh, he was more than an imposter. He was fantastic. Yellow-Kid-Weil was called that because he wore yellow kid gloves wherever he went. That was his trademark. That was how good a con man he was. He could walk in wearing yellow kid gloves. Everybody knew. And within 15 minutes, he is leaving with that big gunny sack with the big dollar sign on the back. He has stripped them, shucked them clean as an ear of Iowa corn. And as far as my old man was concerned, he was the greatest man who ever lived. Does that tell you something, friends?